Good morning. Well, President Trump created waves when, after attending G7 meeting, he came back, and after a week he announced that US is withdrawing from Paris Accord. And that sent shockwaves all around the world. The pleas taken were that only two countries had not signed the accord, that's Nicaragua and Syria. Rest 195 countries had signed. I fail to understand how it's 195 countries. 200 countries are members of United Nations and 15 countries are still not members. So if 195 countries signed and one withdrew, it's not two countries. Anyway, that is beside the point. What really happened was that this withdrawal has practically sounded the death knell of Paris Accord. There was all talk of bravado, defiance, and unity. Unity to uphold Paris Accord, defiance of the United States of America and Trump, and all were shouting at the top of their voices from the rooftops that they will protect the climate and the world from utter annihilation. For once, the whole world seemed to be united against Trump White House. And then slowly and steadily, the so-called unity started being a burden on most of the countries. There were withdrawals, there were signs of crumbling walls of this citadel of unity. The only one person remained committed, and that was Merkel, to further her global leader ambitions. There was another person who remained committed, who is supposed to be a person who is helping Trump, Vladimir Putin. Putin is the only person apart from President Xi of China who were committed to Paris Accord. But can you really think that Putin is committed? Or for that matter, China is committed to climate accord and the Paris Accord, as they are building 1,000 thermal plants every day, and total aggregate of pollution in China and India tops the world. You know, for the semantic purpose, they say US has the maximum pollution, saying that per capita pollution, because US has just 133 million population, while China with 1.25 and India with 1.25. The per capita pollution would be less, but the total pollution is mind-boggling. Now, coming back to this crumbling of the United Front reminds me of the United Fronts that happened in India against Mrs. Gandhi, the Jantar. And those United Fronts were the most disunited forces. The same happened here. First to chicken out was Prime Minister Trudeau. He was very vocal, saying that, okay, we will take up the leadership. And his Environment Minister McKenna was voluble, verbose, and even chided USA for relinquishing its responsibility and duty. And then last Monday was to be the day when the G7 was supposed to meet, and the G7 met, but the G7 did not endorse Paris Accord. Prime Minister Trudeau said he'll support only the energy option Evidently, it had dawned on him that US is extremely important for Canada. And since US is important, he cannot afford to annoy the strong neighbor down south. As all the soft lumber issues and the dairy issues are already bedeviling the relationship. So he changed his stance a bit. And when Merkel called him on telephone on Tuesday, he was very evasive. He didn't want to sign that on the dotted line. And Merkel's ambition of using charismatic young Canadian Prime Minister failed. But that was not sufficient. The other two G7 countries also developed cold feet. Elizabeth May and Shinzo Abe of Japan. Elizabeth May hardly scraped through the elections, and she knows that in case she continues as the Prime Minister, she'll have to face tough bargaining to implement Brexit. And in that, she'll be face to face opposing Merkel and Macron, the French president. So she also practically said that, okay, we will sign G7 minus Paris Accord. And Japan, North Korean bugbear is there and that bug is biting Japan. North Korea has developed missiles, ICBM, mid-air, SAM, surface to air, and all those missiles have sent a shiver of fear down the spine of the Japanese, because they don't have that army to fight North Korea without the help of America. So President Shinzo, Prime Minister Shinzo also developed cold feet and said we should not create further dissensions. Let's leave it to the countries. So we say we endorse all the plans, even the Paris Accord, but add to that the national priorities must be kept in view. Tell me, do you find a single politician anywhere in the world who would be more concerned with what's going to happen in 100 years than to face a tough question in the next 2 years? There is not. So, who is left in G7 to support Paris Accord? 3 countries: Germany, France, and Italy. And Italy by itself has no standing at all. Bailed out repeatedly by Germany, it is beholden to Germany. It cannot afford to enjoy Germany, so whatever Merkel says goes. And now comes the geopolitical situation. Climate change is there. It has always been there, it would be there. Change is the law of nature. Global warming is a controversial topic. Some say it's a hoax, others say it's a reality. But it's not something which is going to bite you in the back in the next few years. It might take 50 years, 100 years, anyway, whatever is there. But the major issues confronting the political leaders today are protectionism versus free trade, nationalism versus globalization, and politically Syria and Qatar. These are the issues which are dominating the political discussion tables. Note that whether after 25 years the Earth's median temperature would increase by 0.5 degrees Celsius or not. And mind you, it's a median temperature. So, no political leader is willing to sacrifice his national interest at the altar of a debatable issue of climate change. Then Merkel had a thought. She suggested that the G20 meeting, which is going to take place in Hamburg this week, this week even, would be an ideal place to put Trump in the hot seat. So she suggested that let Trump and Putin meet. Of course, it was a suggestion that they can sort out their differences. And that didn't happen. Trump and Putin would meet at G20 meeting, but the meeting would be on the sidelines. And even if they meet, because they don't want to meet in the heated political climate of United States, because the Democrats and the CNN will seize upon the opportunity and say that here are the conspirators meeting again. So the situation, the climate is not changing. And another thing has happened now. Turkey has practically said no to the climate change. And Turkey is annoyed. Turkey is annoyed for the simple reason that while it violated the human rights of the protesters, Germany admonished it. So the president of Turkey, Erdogan, took it badly. So what happens is now that the main persons who are promoting climate change and the Paris Accord are Merkel and Xi. Merkel had high hopes from the meeting Xi was to have with the president of EU. And the joint communique had been prepared in which they had mentioned that they stand committed to the Paris Accord. The meeting was taking place the same day when President Trump in the Rose Garden was announcing the withdrawal from the Paris Accord. And it was supposed the joint communique that has been prepared was to be signed, and it mentioned that they stand committed to Paris Accord. The discussion took place, but ultimately the joint declaration did not mention the Paris Accord. That was the last nail in the coffin of Paris Accord and also the global leadership hopes of Chancellor Merkel. Now Merkel is fighting on two fronts. One is she wants to retain or rather gain the global leadership along with presidency. And the second is her looming elections. Looking at what has happened to Elizabeth May, she is afraid of the electorate. People are not very happy with her. So, all these portents are sending signals that what Trump did was condemned, criticized, derided by one and all. And yet, like falling dominoes, each political leader slowly and steadily is veering to the thought of Trump that national need preempts the need of global action for climate change. It doesn't preempt the need of global action to face terrorism. It doesn't stop people being worried about free trade and protectionism. It doesn't stop people from thinking about what's going to happen to democracy, human rights, and populism. But climate change, yes. Everybody accepts that the climate change is there. It has to be there because everything in nature keeps on changing and altering. And there's not a thing you can do about it. Trump had the courage to say it that our prime need is facing terrorism. He was right in saying that fundamentalism is a problem. And this talk of global warming, pollution control, sounds good. But whatever sounds good is not necessarily good. I would be concerned with protecting the planet and the human race, yes. But my first concern would be of urgent need. What shall climate change do if you destroy each other in a nuclear warfare? Climate change might destroy some part of the habitats in the next 100 years, next 50 years, maybe even the next 20 years. But what protects human beings from the Holocaust unleashed by the nuclear weapons in case a person like North Korean dictator or a demented military leader in a third world country releases nuclear warheads? It's time to wake up. It's time to get our priorities straight. I'm happy that the priorities enunciated by Trump is a vindication that right thinking also requires right speech. Majority of the people have been thinking that this is something which is not of immediate concern. It might be urgent, but it's not important. What we have got to do is to ensure what is really urgent and important, and then take action. Secondly, climate change is beyond human control. You can control pollution to some extent. To some extent. You remember I had said, given in one of my comments earlier, that agriculture, vegetation, bogs, these are the biggest polluters. Manufacturing sector is only 25% responsible. But the dairy industry and the agriculture are responsible to 68% for the pollution. The process of methanization is the most polluting factor, and that you cannot change. We go crazy when we talk of the bogs and the backwaters and the lagoons, and we forget the methane being created over there. So, one thing is clear, that when one political leader has the guts to be politically incorrect, but to be correct as far as nation is concerned, that is a cue for other political leaders to slowly and steadily follow that. And a person like that is a real leader because he is changing the thought pattern of the millions. I'm happy that maybe now G7 and G20s would give attention to the more urgent needs rather than be bogged down in the Paris Accord, which might mean something, but that something is of marginal value. Thank you.